Paris, a city of mystery. Here in the heart of the city, just underneath the surface, are what remains of a forgotten world, veiled behind the darkness and cloaked in secrets. Known as the City of Light for its role during the Age of Enlightenment, here lies a hidden continuation of forgotten wisdom from throughout the ages. Behind the philosophical movements that revolutionized the Western world, I go exploring for clues of a secret past. A past that until now has been left concealed behind a forgotten veil of time. Follow me as I continue on my quest for answers. Along these narrow streets lay ancient secrets of a time long since forgotten. Far removed from the typical tourist attractions, I go in search of the secrets that have surrounded some of the greatest movements of our time. Each time as the candle of knowledge almost extinguishes, a new flame arises just in time to rekindle a new world of understanding. In this city, true knowledge has always been perpetuated in silence. A vow amongst the initiated that continues to this day, each willing to die before revealing a word. I now look for what little clues remain of this esoteric past in hopes of understanding how it influenced the world of today. We begin our quest underneath the streets of Paris. Here, under the Cathedral of Notre in Paris, we find remnants of its hidden past. Built along the Seine River, you can find what remains of the ancient Romans on this island in the heart of Paris. To the south of Notre Dame, we find what remains of the ancient Roman mines. Almost 100 feet down into the underbelly of Paris, oxygen runs thin. Much of the stone used in constructing the buildings above ground originated from this labyrinth of tunnels. As the expansion of the city continued, so did the quarry stretching for miles and miles. With expansion came another problem, and it wasn't until the late 1700s that they began to run out of space in the cemeteries above ground that they then decided to move the bodies into the abandoned quarries below, thus creating a large network of catacombs, which now hold the skeletal remains of over 6 million individuals. Above ground, construction of the Notre Dame Cathedral began in 1163 AD, 64 years after the Knights Templars began the first crusades into the Holy Land. For the next 100 years, the Knights Templars expanded across much of Europe and the Holy Land. During this time, Europe began being introduced to the various sciences that the Arabs had maintained and translated from ancient texts in their possession. Furthermore, it was believed that they maintained the true secrets to themselves. As the Knights Templar grew in power, there was a secret plan to disband them in one swoop by both the King of France and Pope Clement V. On Friday, October 13, 1307, the Templars were arrested and brought before trial. After being tortured, claims confirmed suspicious of initiatic rituals and heresy. In Paris alone, dozens of Templars were burned alive at the stake. The Grand Master of the Knights Templar, Jacques de Molay, was likewise brought before an inquisition, and was later burned alive on the east side of the island facing away from Notre Dame. Underneath the Point Neuf bridge, which is infamous for the lovers placing the locks today, stands the plaque dedicated to Jacques de Molay. According to some legends, a lot of the Knights Templars escaped before being caught. There is a held belief that some of the knights joined various guilds, the most recognizable one being that of the Masons, in which they continue to pass the secrets of the Templars down safely throughout the ages. During the medieval times, the Masons were the ones allowed to pass freely from country to country, perfecting the craft and advancing over time. This freedom of passage was the inspiration to form actual meeting spaces to spread philosophical ideas, which were seen as heresy at the time. As the demand for stonework on cathedrals began to dwindle, we began to see the rise of Freemasonry. Thus, the secret initiatic groups began to transition from operative Masonic stoneworking to speculative stoneworking in a symbolic and spiritual sense rather than a physical. A few years after the death of Jacques de Molay, alchemist Nicolas Flamel was born. Flamel was a known bookseller who later claimed to have been given the secret for creating the Philosopher's Stone while traveling in northern Spain. His additional supposed alchemical achievements also resulted in him discovering the elixir of life, which was believed to have brought him immortality. Regardless of the legends that surround Nicolas Flamel, his house still stands to this day. By the 17th century, a new movement took over the streets of Paris. Allegedly formed by a secret group of alchemists, it ushered in a division from the old religious ideas and formed new ideas based on science, reason, and new philosophical thought. This ultimately led to the Age of Enlightenment. Allegorical and cryptic Rosicrucian posters began to litter the walls of Paris, and the idea of ancient secret wisdom appealed to many. Anonymous manifestos began to circulate, which put forth the idea of a secret world of mystic masters that worked together toward the benefit of humanity. These secret traditions began to grow. New groups began to form, such as Freemasonry, which later played a crucial role during the Age of Enlightenment and the French Revolution that was to follow. Occult scholars such as Eliphas Levi, who in the 1800s set forth the grounds for a new revival movement in Paris, in which he tried to tie in key esoteric elements from older Kabbalistic and alchemical writings into a new interpretive framework and philosophical thought. His work was the foundation for a new revival movement and the creation of esoteric movements that were to follow, such as the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. After Levi's death, another scholar continued where he left off. Gerardin Coucy, also known as Pappus, was a well-respected physician and scholar on esoteric subjects ranging from alchemy to Kabbalah. He wrote extensively and helped preserve another tradition which was known as the Martinist Order. These teachings were based on the secret mystical teachings of Martinez de Pasquale, dating back to the 1740s. Pappus was initiated into several groups such as the Golden Dawn, OTO, and Memphis Mizraim. He was also summoned several times by Tsar Nicholas II of Russia, who requested Pappus to conjure up the spirit of his dead father, Alexander III. The spirit prophesied that the Tsar would meet his end at the hands of revolutionaries. Pappus reassured the Tsar that this would never come true so long as he was alive. However, he later died during World War I serving as a medic when he contracted tuberculosis and died October 25, 1916. The Tsar and his family were assassinated shortly thereafter. Things in Paris took a turn for the worse when World War II later broke out. Many Freemasons and Martinists alike were sent to the concentration camps. SS soldiers raided the Masonic temples and took with them a lot of the priceless books and historical artifacts in their collection. After the war, the KGB later returned what little they could retrieve back to the Masons in Paris, where they later set up a museum. However, by this point, the level of esoteric interest has never fully recovered to the days before the war. From almost utter annihilation, many secret groups in Paris today are still trying to rekindle what pieces of the past they have managed to salvage.